My name is Rose Wang. I'm the executive advisor at Aim High Accelerator Fund. What a day for celebrating so many accomplishments and so much progress has been made. I'm really honored to be MC of this section of the program for today. Aim High was founded in 2019 with the singular goal of bridging the innovative laboratory discoveries and life-impacting, high-impact treatments that happen in the clinic for patients. That goal cannot be accomplished without scientists and scientist entrepreneurs, like many of you sitting in the audience today. And I look around this is my third time attending this conference. I see female participation has increased. We're rough estimate 30–40%, so I'm really happy to see that. But did you know that only 2% of women entrepreneurs in life sciences industry actually get VC funding? So it's that astounding fact that got our fearless leader, Dr. Sujuan, to decide we will build our first program as an accelerator fund to focus on women and women entrepreneurs. And hence the first entrepreneurship program was born in Aim High. And she is a real entrepreneurial leader in cancer research. She's recognized for that. So I'm going to bring her up to talk about our women's initiatives, where we have gone in 3 years, as well as the entrepreneurship programs. Dr. Ba?
I'm glad everybody has a good time eating lunch, enjoying after the very intensive talks, right? So I have to say, it was a wonderful morning sessions, right? We have lots of good questions, good speakers, and one thing I can see from that is we have our work cut out. Webb and Jennifer ask a lot of thought-provoking questions, and speakers give us a lot of predicts. So in the future, we're gonna chart the course and continue to make progress forward from the morning session. So stay tuned for the updates and briefing, or I should say it, debriefing from that. And now, let me welcome everyone to this second part of the Global Summit and Award Ceremony for Cancer Research and Entrepreneurship. When we launched Aim High Accelerator Fund, as Rose said, in 2019, and we realized that there are not only patients' unmet needs, there are also unmet needs for women leaders, women scientists, and the women entrepreneurs. And the first flagship program we launched out of Aim High Accelerator Fund is to really help the women scientists and women entrepreneurs. And we built a first of its kind a women's venture competition. And with the initial capacity building grant from the National Foundation for Cancer Research and the Asian Fund for Cancer Research, we have really looked at hundreds of women-started companies with the wonderful support from lots of advisors in these rooms. So this is the first time I wanted to say thank you all the committee members who really made these programs successful. And we realize that women leaders are not just one program. It really is the ecosystem that we need to build. We need to recognize women leaders, amplify women's power or voice, and continue to show role models for the future generation of women scientists, women leaders. So after 3 years venture competition, women's venture competition, later on, we also started a Bristol Award competition because we don't want to leave our peers, male counterpart peers behind. So we decided to build another venture competition. The Bristol Award competition is bridging the gap from academic to entrepreneurship. So this is also the third year for hosting the Brace Award. And we're gonna showcase several wonderful finalists from these two venture competitions. But what I wanted to say is, great, we have the young women leaders and the young entrepreneurs. But we really wanted to highlight the women, trailblazing women, the role models that have made tremendous amount of contributions and impacts for cancer research and patients. So we decided that we're going to really try a completely different approach of recognizing trailblazing women leaders. And we wanted to emphasize the fact I mentioned earlier, that it elevated people, especially the empowering and catapulting forward women in oncology. So we decided to launch the Beacon Award for Women Leaders in Oncology. Really, the recipients of this award will be the role models, and for many years to come for younger generation. And this Beacon Award aims to recognize outstanding women leaders in various sectors of the health and life sciences. And they are not just about discovery. So this is one of its kind award that really look at women leaders from all sectors. Can be in the discovery, can be in the development, can be in the investment, can be in the law, can be in the public policies. Because without public policies, a lot of things could not continue to move forward. So this is one award I continue to think it's quite unique in a way to recognize women leaders from all sectors. So today, I wanted to say that for this first year, we are very delighted to receive the exceptional pool of nominations. First year, I was really nervous. I was worried about not many people heard about this because we don't spend money marketing it. We just rely on the words of the mouth and advisors, collaborators, emails. And then we were really surprised to receive an outstanding pool of nominations. And we have established a committee, and actually two committees. One is the screening committee, one is the selection committee. So I'm grateful to have the collective talents, expertise, and the experience from the inaugural selection committee members who helped select the most deserving inaugural awardees for this year. And we have two wonderful committee members with us today. So let me invite the co-chair of the inaugural selection committee, Dr. Cavenee, and also Karen Knudsen, CEO of the ACS, to be here to tell you about this process, to tell you about the criteria, to talk about their shared vision with me about how we can really amplify, elevate, and recognize and honor trailblazing women who have made tremendous amount of contributions to the cancer patients. So Webb and Karen, please come and join me.
to you, Dr. Cavenee.
Karen and I were just told like 5 minutes ago that we were going to tag team, so this may be a little rough. So Sujuan, thanks. This is a great program, and I have to say that, as you can tell, Sujuan wants to get her money's worth out of whatever it is, so I do like 10 different things. But one of the things which I really take a lot of joy in is the fact that NFCR really does believe in and has shown its commitment to equity and recognition of talent for everybody. And you can see that around the room. And it's really true, and it's been true for a long time. The Beacon Award, this new award that we're going to talk about for the next little while, is for women leaders in oncology. And when we were designing it, we were really thinking about, what does that mean? Is it going to be a science award? Is it going to be just a women's version of the Aim High Award that we've already seen, the St. George Award? There's no reason for that. There's already women who have won the St. George Award. And so we really wanted instead to be something that was more encompassing, that would honor a woman who came from a variety of different places, from investment community, from the policy community, from the research community, from clinical care community, or even from the mentorship committee groups. So it really was my honor this year to serve as a co-chair of the group that selected this year's winner. And I'm going to have Karen briefly describe the process. It's a process which has been derived by NFCR over a period of time and used for the St. George Award, which has worked very well there. But I'll let her tell you what it is, because I think it'll help you appreciate really how thorough the process was and how transparent it was as well. So Karen, you want to do your shtick here?
Absolutely happy to do, and I just want to take a quick tangent to say that there's no one better qualified than Dr. Cavenee to lead this inaugural committee. I will say, having had him as my mentor for my fellowship and have him as a lifelong mentor, women in science leaders don't just happen. It's someone that has that sponsors them, that has their back, and puts them forward. So, we've all benefited from mentors like Webb, and I'm really glad to have had him and still have him as my mentor. This committee was really a pleasure to serve on. So while it was the inaugural year, Dr. Baugh had no reason to be concerned. There were 27 exceptional applicants for this that initially went to the screening committee to look at whether or not they would be applicable to the award, and they were all just absolutely superb. So after that, the top grouping was sent unranked to a final committee that would make the selection. And in that committee, we had a vigorous discussion. We all agreed that these were truly exceptional candidates. And what we looked for was that woman in science, a woman in oncology who had had the highest impact across cancer science, across the continuum of cancer, from everything from prevention all the way into survivorship. What was it that this individual had done? And so it was, after a few hours of discussion, we were unified in our position on who would take this first inaugural award.
Now we have the pleasure and the honor of calling on Dr. Janet Woodcock to the stage to introduce our inaugural laureate. And Dr. Woodcock, as you know, is widely admired and recognized as one of the most talented and effective public servants in this town. She serves now as Principal Deputy Commissioner of the U.S. FDA, and we're delighted to have you here. Dr. Woodcock.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure, really. It's just unbelievable to be able to introduce you to Anne, whom you probably all know, who is going to receive this award. I first started working closely with Ann Barker when she was NCI deputy. And at that time, as you can see from her CV, she already had a distinguished career in science and in entrepreneurship. So she'd checked a couple of those boxes across that spectrum already. But Ann and I were co-chairs of the FDA NCI working group, okay? And that set out to, and did solve, a number of problems between FDA and NCI. And we got that done. These are typical kinds of science and regulatory problems that arise. And I think cancer research was advanced as a result of all the different things we did. And some of those are laid out in her bio. But most striking at the time, as I got to know Ann, she shared with me her challenges in getting the Cancer Genome Atlas implemented. And this wasn't a single problem like the ones we were working on with the FDA, NCI working group, different discrete problems. It was an ongoing struggle, apparently, of resistance to putting resources into this program. And in fact, I remember this so clearly because I was simply astonished by this. I mean, it seemed so obvious that this was the right thing to do. And the Cancer Genome Atlas seemed the best and fastest way to really understand the molecular basis of cancer at both the population and the molecular level together. How could anyone be opposed to that? Particularly at NCI, and NIH, which were doing it. But of course, it was a new way of doing this science. It was team science, right? And it didn't follow, I think, well-trodden pathways. Things got somewhat ugly at times, I think. Ann had worked in the dreaded private sector and heard about that. She actually, gasp, was a woman. And she was not a doctor. I mean, oh my goodness. And so forth. But, you know, she persevered, and the results speak for themselves. It was the right thing to do, and it has advanced things tremendously. And you all probably know that better than I, although, of course, at the FDA, I was working on talking the oncology group, and this is hard to believe, I know, into the targeted therapy was the new wave, which they absolutely didn't believe for a while. But this vignette, I think, reminds us how hard change is, even in, or maybe particularly in science, like in all human affairs, and how it takes someone who is committed, who perseveres, and is willing to endure taking a lot of grief to make that happen. It's a huge achievement. It's been made by many because it was team science, but Ann stood at the center to make that happen. And I think we all owe her for that. Another innovative project Ann drove was the GBM Agile. Less common cancers such as GBM are hard to do therapeutic trials on, since gathering enough patients at one time can be challenging, and they may have multiple subtypes and stages and so forth. And so it isn't as if you can just declare open enrollment and you just have all the people you need and get things done. I have long been a proponent, as some people in this room know, of platform trials that study the disease as well as interventions, because I think the disease is what needs to be studied, and interventions are points along the journey of improving the outcomes of disease. GBM, glioblastoma multiforme, has a huge need, as it's often a relentless tumor, as we've known from our many public figures who have suffered from it. And it really hasn't had the breakthroughs that many other tumor types have. And you all are more in this field than I do, know more about that. But anyway, it's a very good candidate. GBM Agile is a global platform trial designed to test many interventions at scale. This was a different kind of challenge, I think, than the Cancer Genome Atlas. since funders basically are used to dole out money, right, for their intervention, not for a trial of a disease. And so those trials are reported in the cancer literature and the New England Journal and everything. They're about, oh, we tested this intervention and this is what happens. And so it's a complete frame shift, complete new way of looking at things. And it's hard, especially when you needed money to get it done. So, you know, this was, you know, very difficult, I think, to get people organized, get their brains around what needed to be done, and then getting them to put up the money for it, which is a risky thing, and is even, you know, more of an issue, I think, than what was happening with the cancer genome. But along with a small band of persistent and persuasive advocates, Anne was able to get this going. And we will all benefit, because I think this is what the future of trials should look like. And to do those groundbreaking trials and to get them set up and to get them to work and be successful is really what being a beacon is all about. So Anne has contributed in so many other visionary ways. But those are the ones I'm most familiar with, so those are the ones I wanted to talk about as exemplary of what her contributions have been. I can think of no more appropriate recipient for the inaugural version of this Beacon Award for Women Leaders in Oncology. Congratulations, Anne.
You know, when I have a limited amount of time to say anything, those of you that know me, I'm an extemporaneous speaker, but when I have to write things down, it always goes wrong. So I did write things down, but I'm departing from that. So just know that I will probably just take this from the top of my head. First of all, that was an incredible, I didn't even recognize myself. You guys come talk to my family sometime, right? So. First of all, I have so many people to thank here, and I'm going to do that first because in science we always thank people at the end. I think I'd like to turn that around today and thank people in the front of what I have to say, because almost everybody in this room is responsible for my being up here. So thanks to, if I don't thank you in my thank yous, you know that I thank you, right? So I have a lot of thank yous here. So. First, I want to thank Sujuan Bai and NFCR and the AIM-High Award. I am really honored to be amongst the women that were even considered for this, and I've always aimed high, and I think that to do less is really stupid. So if you have a chance to aim high, why aim low, right? That doesn't make any sense at all. So, you know, you may fail. But if you don't aim high, you'll never know if you could have gotten there. So I love the award. I don't know if I'm a beacon or not. I've been called other things, but a beacon I will try to be, because I really believe that I want people to really try harder, do more, because everybody sitting in this room actually cares about one thing: defeating cancer. That's why we're all here. And whatever it takes is what we should be doing. And I have to say a couple of words about Sujuan Bai. I met her a long time ago now, but she's a force of nature. So when she says she's going to do something, it gets done. And she and Franklin, have built this organization now to have entrepreneurs as part of the organization, scientists, and now to put this emphasis on women and cancer is appreciated by all of us. So I also want to thank Janet Woodcock, who introduced me, who is a great friend of mine. I know she gave up a piece of her Saturday to be here, and I know she works in her garden on Saturday, so it's doubly important because she has a hard job. We did a few things when I was at NCI, Janet and I, that I think had some impact. One, you saw a reference up here to phase 0 trials today. We did that in the NCI FDA Interagency Oncology Task Force. We called it an exploratory IND, but it's really changed the face of the way we can do clinical trials in the country. And we changed a lot of other things in those days. But one of the things we did was to actually sort of rethink clinical trials, and we had the opportunity through the FNIH to do a trial called I-SPY 2, which has really set the stage for how you can set up a platform for a trial so you don't have to do it over and over again, and how you can put a disease at the center of a trial, and how you can use adaptive design, for example, Bayesian statistics, to actually learn from every patient that comes in the trial. And I-SPY 2 has been a real success story. It's launched in 2009, still going strong. I also want to thank my friend Raju Kuchipalati, who actually I know nominated me for this award. So if you take a call from Raju one day and he says, I'm going to do something, only later do you figure out what he did. So Raju, thank you. He was a great muse for me in TCGA and so many other ways, and a great friend. And I want to thank the committee that did this. I was a little stunned to hear how much work went on all this. I apologize for that up front, but I'm glad I won, so you just be clear on that. So thank you, Webb and Karen and the members of that committee. It's really, I will do my best to represent all the people who were candidates here. In the spirit of full disclosure, I am not an entrepreneur at the moment, but it was one of my side trips, and I took a lot of side trips in my career, and I think everyone should do that if they have the chance. All it takes is courage. You just have to be willing to fail and be poor. Those are two things that are required. But I really think that was one of the most interesting things I ever did, and the hardest. And it also is one of those things that's paying off for us in this country, especially with women entrepreneurs. I think running half the companies now in biotechnology, it's an amazing force, and it's the force that actually is making a difference, I think, for cancer patients right now. So I need to thank my family. Heaven knows that our families put up with us, right? All of us, not just me. All of you sitting out there know what I'm talking about. So Tony, my husband, is here, who puts up with me. Well, I put up with him too, let's be clear on that. So, yes, he does put up with me. And it's interesting, my daughter Robin and my son-in-law David and my grandson Michael, we're a defeat cancer family. We've lost our whole family to cancer, and we've taken care of every one of them. And every one was more difficult than the other one to lose. And every one of them taught me more about what we had to do. And I learned the most from my sister, who died of breast cancer when she was 46 years old. And if she were alive today, she'd live a very long time. And that really makes me sad. But I know what's happened since she died. And we've changed almost everything for breast cancer since she died so badly of breast cancer all those years ago. So I actually, unlike my scientific roots always make me want to show slides like all of my colleagues did today. And I am going to do that, but I want to say a couple things first about how do we do the kinds of things that were highlighted today in that wonderful introduction that Janet gave and Webb and others know so much about. I learned actually in an environment years ago that was totally and completely dedicated to convergent science, and I was in that environment for 18 years at Battelle Memorial Institute. And I came away from that experience as unapologetic polymath. I'm a polymath. I mean, and I think we should all become polymaths in science, and I think we will, or we're in the process of doing that. That means that I appreciate the role of all kinds of science, and I really learn from everybody that actually represents disciplines. And I think it makes a big difference. And why did I come to that, and why do I organize, and why do I do things the way I do them? Think about the way your brain works. Let's just say you were shutting down your brain, and this happens in people, we know it does. If you shut down a network, you can lose all kinds of function. Any network in your brain, you can start losing function. Your frontal lobe, obviously, more than most. But if you think about the way we're going to get things done in the future and the way we're getting things done now, you need knowledge networks. Okay, and if you don't take anything away from what I say, I think knowledge networks are the future. I think that in the future, you're going to learn as much from your colleagues as you do from your postdocs and everybody else that you actually relate to. The two programs that were highlighted today, the Cancer Genome Atlas and the GBM Agile trial, were both knowledge networks. As we put something together that no one had done before. As Janet mentioned, the Cancer Genome Atlas, everybody loves it now, but trust me, folks, they didn't love it when it started. And that was the hardest project I've ever undertaken because Francis Collins, who's ever the optimist, who just keeps saying, and it's going to get better. This is exactly what we went through with the Human Genome Project. And I thought, well, yeah, that was a long time ago. This is now, So we had more written about the Cancer Genome Atlas than we actually wrote ourselves in terms of people saying, what a really stupid idea this is. And my friend Rod DePena over here was one of my other muses during that period who just kept saying, this is okay, it's going to be fine. We had a lot of conversations in those days, and he was one of our advisors for the project. But it's very interesting. You learn something when you try to do things like this, is that if you don't get a lot of pushback, it's probably not worth doing. It's probably going to not bring any change at all. And if it's incremental or it's same old, people will agree with you. They're going to shake their hands and say yes. But, that's not what you want. You want change, and you want it done by groups of people who are dedicated to achieving truth in biology. And in this particular case, if you just sat down and did the calculations of what it was going to take to sequence the 33 tumors that we ended up sequencing in that project, it would have probably taken 1,000 years. It was 10,000 human genome projects. So if you think about that, it made no sense to do it other than the way we did it. And it was really a challenge. I personally managed that project for the first 7 years. We had a team of people between NHCRI and NCI that met every week, and those meetings were always interesting. So the second project, the GBM Agile project, was actually a bit of a subclone from I-SPY 2. And without actually Sujuan's support and NFCR support, we would never have gotten that project done. It was really a collaboration between our Australian colleagues, the Brain Tumor Foundation there, and NFCR, and my own organization, the National Biomarker Development Alliance. We came up with the money to do that project, and it was hard. It went on for 18 months. It started with Webb and Al Young and myself sitting in a meeting like this and saying, what are we going to do about GBM? What can we do? And so we had a couple of meetings, think tanks, and said, we can fix this. We can bring people together. And I have to tell you, it's a secret. I like telling secrets, because we shouldn't have many secrets in science. But one secret is that sometimes people will not undertake things because they say, well, that group doesn't get along with this group, that doesn't get along with that group. Forget it. They will get along. They will. If it'll change the world, they will get along, and they will do the work. So that was a very important project. It's ongoing now, and I am hoping that it will change GBM forever. And I think it might, because these drugs that come into these trials fail very quickly, or they succeed quite rapidly as well. So both those projects were really seminal, I think, to changing the way we think about not just molecular science in the case of TCGA, but the way we do trials. So I had the real advantage at the NCI of being there at a time when I had two directors, Andy von Eschenbach and John Niederhuber, who were very open-minded about doing innovative things. And we wanted to set the stage for precision oncology. So we did not just TCGA, but we did, you know, we did a proteomics alliance, we did the nanotechnology alliance. Dan Haber was in that. I mean, some of you were in that. We did the physical sciences oncology centers, and there are so many people, Val, so many people sitting here. Your honoree tonight was part of that. Lisa Cousins, people who really thought ahead and knew that, guess what, folks? We're all three-dimensional beings, right? We're not two-dimensional. You're not a piece of paper. So, and all the laws of physics apply to us. And physical sciences and oncology centers have really changed the way a lot of people are thinking about cancer. And I just would predict that's going to be the future of cancer. And I know Webb said today that, you know, it's not going to all be math. It's going to be a lot of math, Webb. I'm sorry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. So I only have a few minutes left, but I'm going to advance my slides because I think we're at an inflection point in cancer. And how we got here is what I want to tell you, and then I want to see if we can, okay. So this is a slide that I use often. Elias Sahuni created this slide several years ago, and I think it tells our story so beautifully. Cancer could just be on this slide. You can start down here with empirical observations when cytotoxics came into being, and then as you go up this entire curve, individual investigator-initiated research is all the way through here, but essentially almost everything we've done to date is reductionist science, except for some of the things that we just talked about. And so what you're going to see and what you heard about today is a lot of subsystem thinking. We're starting to think about you are digital in terms of your DNA and your RNA. Those monomers are pretty important, but you're also analog information. So what you heard today about the microenvironment and what's going on outside of the digital information is another series of subsystems, but we're starting to do that. And then we're at a point, I believe now, and I'll show you why, that I think we are ready to start thinking about applying mathematics, and applying theory to the data that we're accumulating. So if you think about this, information is everything, and Paul Nurse, who's a great colleague of many of us, a Nobel Prize winner, published a paper a few years ago, which I always reference, essentially where he said, you know, we have to start thinking about logic and information when it comes to cancer and other diseases. And he sort of visited that actually in 2021. Essentially, we have to get better, essentially, at applying theory to what we're talking about. So if you look at what's really important today, it is information. Now, what I'm going to tell you, and you know this, is that data is not information, okay? Data is not information. How many physicists do we have in the room? Data is not information. It is entropy until it has context. Any physicist knows that. So until you give it context, it's still just entropy, noise. And so a discovery that was made so long ago in the 1940s is what we need to be thinking about, and that is, how do you apply information theory to cancer? And this is Claude Shannon's work. Claude Shannon is one of my heroes, but essentially, if you look at the way he came up with all of these signal processing devices, what he told us is that information is information, but information has to have a receiver, right? So when we talk about information in cancer today, we really don't understand a lot of what we're saying. No one actually knows what a signal is. If I ask you, I'll get 14 different answers. But there are ways to signal that we will know a lot more about in the future. And I believe that information theory is the way that this is going to happen. So let me go back to this. Sorry, can I go backwards? Yeah. So you won't have time to read this slide, but if you've not read anything else, and there's a little math in this paper that was written in the 40s, but in 1948, actually, he wrote this paper, and essentially, it tells you everything that you need to know about what information is, how it's transmitted, and what happened after that was everything that you have today that's digital, everything that you have that you use is based on this. And we are so silly in biology not to understand this. It is just insane. And so I had a conversation just last week with an expert in information theory, and he took what we've just done with KRAS, he took information theory and derived exactly the same answers with pure mathematics that he did in about 2 hours. And we've been working on this for how many years? I don't remember. So this is the future. Like it or not, we're going to have to take some information scientists to lunch. So this is not going to work. You know, there are not going to be any miracles. We're not going to make mathematicians out of biologists, and certainly not out of cancer biologists. But we're going to have to bring this community in to work with us. And there aren't a lot of them. But they have to put up with us, and we have to put up with them, and we have to learn. So I met this man. I'm one of the fortunate people who met this man, and he's just everything that you thought he would have been. And we are in an age of complexity, and we have been studying cancer by the parts of cancer, Rhonda Pino's term, not mine. But we have been studying the parts of cancer for decades, and we're expecting the world to tell us what to do next, and there's no one else to tell us what to do next. And I have to tell you, it's going to be about understanding complex adaptive systems, and it's going to be about understanding the digital relationship and what's going on with everything else that's not digital, which has to do with the microenvironment and the macroenvironment of humans. And the last thing I'll say is if you can't embrace complexity, cancer is not going to be your field, because that's where we are. And one last thing, since we have been studying the parts of cancer, and I feel somewhat responsible for that through TCGA, I really think that we need to organize, listen up, Sujuan, we need to organize a network, a knowledge network, that systematically functionalizes the changes in the genome. If we don't do that, it's going to be years and years and years until we have enough knowledge of how those functions relate to changes in the genome. And we love the idea that individuals can pursue that, but it's really hard science to do by yourself. So I want to thank you again, Sujuan and NFCR and Aim High. What a great idea of this award, and I am so honored to accept it and humbled. So thank you all.